We are taking the absolutely mind-boggling 4.5 billion-year history of our planet, and we're going to compress it into a single, relatable 24-hour clock. You know, we've all heard these massive numbers before, but our human brains just aren't wired to comprehend billions of years. So to actually make sense of this incredible journey, we're shrinking the whole shebang down to just one day. Imagine waking up at midnight as a brand new planet and traveling all the way through to the very last seconds before the next midnight. Let's do it. So here is our itinerary for the day. We've got midnight to high noon, the slow evolutionary afternoon, an evening explosion of life, the reign of dinosaurs, and finally, the final ticking minutes. To give you a real sense of the sheer scale here, the fundamental rule of our clock is this. Every single hour that passes in our explainer represents roughly 200 million real-time years. So when just a few minutes are ticking by, we're talking about entire oceans forming and millions of species living and dying. All right, let's get the clock started. Section 1. Midnight to high noon. Chaos and the first cells. We kick things off in the really turbulent early hours. The Earth is young, it's super unstable, and, well, it's bumping into its neighbors in the dark. Our clock strikes 12 a.m., and bam! The young Earth instantly collides with another planet named Theia, birthing the moon. It is a really rough start. And honestly, notice how incredibly slow the morning feels on this timeline. We wait all the way until 5:30 a.m., just to see the very first single-celled organisms hanging out, feasting on a methane-filled planet. By 8 a.m., our morning rush hour literally only consists of the very first viruses emerging. It actually takes an entire billion years, which is 6 full hours on our clock, just for photosynthesizing bacteria to finally pump out enough oxygen by 11 a.m. to kickstart life. Now, to really grasp how chaotic this early environment was, consider the number 12. At 12 o'clock a.m., the Earth's magnetic poles are switching places 12 times a second. That is a stark contrast to the 250,000 years it takes in real time. It's totally wild. Not only that, but the continents are smashing together into supercontinents and breaking back apart every 2 hours on our clock. It is just a wildly unstable morning. Section 2. The slow evolutionary afternoon, freezing and dividing. So, moving right into the afternoon, the climate goes absolutely wild. And evolution, well, it takes its sweet, sweet time. Just before we break for lunch at 11:35 a.m., things get incredibly chilly. In a mere second on our clock, the entire planet flashes into a giant ball of ice. We get our first snowball Earth completely freezing over the oceans. Honestly, you'd barely have time to grab a winter coat before the entire planet thaws right back out by lunchtime. Right after the ice melts, we hit the 1 p.m. hour, and special cells with internal organs finally come to life. But man, they take forever to do anything interesting. At 4 p.m., they slowly start dividing into groups that will eventually become fungus, plants, and animals. The crucial takeaway here is this massive gap of waiting. We spend almost the entire afternoon waiting for these simple cells to get to all that evolutionary jazz. It isn't until 7:20 p.m. that we finally get something that even looks somewhat familiar: sea sponges. Now keep a microscope handy for this next one. At 7:45 p.m., the Placozoa is born. Now, it's only 1 millimeter long, but this tiny little creature is absolute royalty. Why? Because every single animal you know, including you and me, owes its existence to this tiny evening arrival. It's the last common ancestor of all animals combined. Pretty amazing, right? Section 3. An evening explosion of life. The ocean fills up. As the sun starts setting on our 24-hour clock, the evolutionary pace really shifts gears, and the oceans suddenly just burst with color and movement. At 7:55 p.m., Earth freezes over again for a quick 2-minute ski session before melting. Then, boom, 8 o'clock hits, and the very first animals appear. These transparent comb jellies with rainbow reflections. By 8:30 p.m., we finally get our ozone layer. Now, the ozone layer is a little late to the party, arriving past sunset, but it immediately allows plants and vibrant life to absolutely flood the ocean. So by 8:45 p.m., you've got jellyfish happily swimming around brand new corals.
But think about the sheer speed of this next phase. At 8:56 p.m., animals develop incomplete backbones. Exactly 4 minutes later, at 9 o'clock p.m., we see the first official complete backbones. Only 4 minutes tick by on our clock, completely masking the 15 million real years of grueling evolution it actually took to build a proper spine.
Section 4. The Reign of Dinosaurs. Land takeover and mass extinctions. Okay, let's track how life bravely crawls out of the water, setting the stage for massive beasts and, unfortunately, cataclysmic disasters. By 9:10 p.m., the sea creatures are getting a bit stir-crazy and decide to explore the land. This timeline perfectly maps the supersonic spread of diversity. We get insects and tall trees shooting up at 9:41 p.m., and four-legged animals, tetrapods, hitting shallow waters at 9:45 p.m. Then, at 10:10 p.m., we hit a critical split. Cerasids, which will become reptiles, birds, and dinosaurs, and synapsids, which will eventually evolve into mammals like us.
But then, disaster strikes. At 10:30 p.m., a devastating mass extinction takes place. Only 5% of species survive. It was likely caused by a huge asteroid, or maybe an enormous volcanic eruption. But whatever it was, it wiped out almost everything.
Still, the survivors press on. At 10:34 p.m., the dinosaurs finally make their grand appearance. But check this out. Just 2 minutes later, at 10:36 p.m., we suddenly see bird-like footprints on the ground. This sparks a massive biological mystery. Wait, are the dinosaurs turning into birds? And the answer to that is a resounding yes. By 11 p.m., we actually have 1-foot-long birds appearing in Europe with actual dinosaur faces and round wings. The fossil record brilliantly illustrates this strange, feathered crossover, taking flight right before our final hour on the clock.
Section 5. The final ticking minutes. Mammals burst and humans sprint.
We have officially reached 11 p.m., and the sheer density of events in this final hour turns our explainer into a frantic, breathless sprint to midnight. At exactly 11:15 p.m., mammals massively diversify into 4 distinct groups. Group 2 gives us monkeys and apes, Group 3 gives us elephants and manatees, and Group 4 gives us anteaters and armadillos. But listen to Group 1. Remarkably, whales, bats, and hoofed mammals share the exact same evolutionary column. Yep, a whale and a giraffe actually share an ancestor. Mind-blowing.
Meanwhile, the dinosaurs are absolutely peaking. At 11:17 p.m., the massive Argentinosaurus appears. This beast was the length of 3 school buses and tall enough to peek right into a 7th-floor window. It is pure Jurassic Park for a brief 9 minutes, right until an earth-shattering asteroid clears the board completely at 11:26 p.m. Just like that, the dinosaurs are gone, paving the way for the hairy, milk-loving mammals to take over.
By 11:45 p.m., our hoofed friends split up based purely on their toe count. Even toes go one way, becoming goats, camels, pigs, and deer. Odd toes go the other way, giving us rhinos and tapirs. Now, the clock is ticking relentlessly. We are agonizingly close to midnight, and guess what? Still no humans in sight. Let's track how this builds in the absolute final seconds of our day. It's a seriously frantic sequence of events. Chimpanzees and bonobos suddenly appear at 11:58 p.m. 15 seconds later, hominin species begin to walk on 2 legs. It isn't until 11:59 p.m. and 23 seconds that full-blown humans arrive in Africa and migrate. I mean, we literally wait until the clock is striking midnight to make our debut. And it takes all the way until 11:59 p.m. and 58 seconds for humans to finally invent tools and language. 2. Out of an entire 24-hour day of planetary history, from the collision that birthed the moon, to the freezing and thawing of oceans, to the entire reign of the dinosaurs, humans with language and tools have existed for exactly 2 seconds. It really puts our incredibly brief existence into perspective, doesn't it? We showed up at the absolute very last moment. But in just those 2 ticks of the clock, we went from possessing absolutely no tools to becoming the absolute top of the food chain. So as we pass midnight and move into a brand new day, what could possibly happen in our next second? Keep that in mind and never stop exploring.